The sound of tearing fabric cut through the air like a whip, startling every soul inside the grand Lancaster mansion. The quiet maid stood frozen, her pale face burning with shame as threads of her uniform dangled from her trembling shoulder. In her hand, the silver tray she carried clattered to the floor, cups shattering into pieces that scattered like her pride. The powerful woman who had caused this disgrace, Mrs. Lancaster, the millionaire's mother, stared with cold satisfaction in her eyes. Her lips curled as she spat venomous words, calling the maid careless, unworthy, a burden that should never have stepped into their polished halls. The gathering of relatives and servants looked on, stunned into silence, breaths held, eyes darting between the furious mother and the broken young woman she had just humiliated. At that very moment, a chair scraped loudly against the marble floor, breaking the heavy hush. Adrian Lancaster, the only son of the house, rose from his seat. His tall figure, commanding and filled with restrained fury, crossed the space in long strides. Without hesitation, he removed his tailored jacket and draped it over the maid's shoulders, shielding her torn uniform from prying eyes. His voice, deep and steady, carried across the hall with unmistakable power. "Mother," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut glass, "how dare you treat her this way?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. The air grew thick with disbelief. No one had ever heard Adrian speak to his mother with such defiance. Mrs. Lancaster blinked, her face twitching with a mixture of shock and rage. She stammered, trying to mask her cruelty under the guise of discipline. "I was teaching her a lesson. She must know her place. She is just a servant, nothing more." Adrian's eyes, usually calm, now burned with anger. "Her place," he echoed. "Her place is to be treated with dignity, just like any human being under this roof. Wealth does not give you the right to strip someone of their respect." His words struck like thunder, echoing in every corner of the room. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, servants lowered their gazes, and Elena, the maid at the center of it all, stood trembling beneath his jacket, tears pooling in her eyes though she said nothing. That night, long after the guests had left and the mansion had grown quiet, Adrian found her sitting alone in the small quarters where the servants lived. She had her head bowed, her hands clenched tightly together as if she could hold her pain inside. The flickering lantern light revealed her swollen eyes, evidence of the silent tears she had shed. He stepped inside gently, but she startled, quickly rising to her feet, murmuring apologies as though his presence were a burden. "Stop apologizing," he said softly, his earlier fury now melted into warmth. "You've done nothing wrong." She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "You should not have defended me like that. She is your mother. I am just a maid. This will only cause trouble for you." He moved closer, his voice firm yet tender. "You are not just a maid. Do you not see the worth in yourself? You are kind, honest, and hardworking. That is worth more than all the chandeliers and marble in this house. If anyone should be ashamed, it is those who cannot see your value." His words, gentle yet resolute, touched a part of her heart she had long buried under humility and silence. Tears spilled again, but this time they carried not only pain, but also relief. In the days that followed, whispers spread like wildfire among both staff and relatives. The son of the house had stood up for a maid, had covered her shame, had defied his mother for her. Rumors twisted, tongues wagged, and eyes followed Elena wherever she walked. Some of the servants secretly admired her, their own silent oppressions finding hope in Adrian's courage. But others, fearful of the mistress's wrath, avoided her, leaving her isolated in the very place she had once found solace. Mrs. Lancaster's suspicion grew heavier with each passing day. She watched her son closely, noting the small ways he lingered near Elena, the softness in his voice when he spoke her name, the protective glances that revealed more than words ever could. One afternoon, she cornered Elena in the garden, her presence cold as the stone statues that loomed nearby. "You think my son cares for you, don't you?" she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Elena shook her head quickly, her hands tightening around the laundry basket she carried. "No, ma'am. I would never think such a thing. He is kind to everyone. I am no one." Mrs. Lancaster stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Do not mistake kindness for love. You are beneath him. Do not dare imagine otherwise. If you value your position here, if you value your family's survival, stay away from him." The threat hung heavy in the air, and though Elena nodded obediently, her heart throbbed with confusion. She had never dreamed of love in this mansion, never dared hope for anything beyond her wages and her dignity. Yet Adrian's words, his actions, lingered in her mind, warming her like a forbidden fire she could not extinguish. Later that evening, Adrian found her in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she polished silverware. He noticed the strain in her eyes, the way she avoided his gaze. "She spoke to you, didn't she?" he asked quietly. Elena froze, then tried to deny it, but her silence betrayed her. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Do not let her words define your worth. She cannot see beyond the gold and pride she clings to. I see you. I see who you truly are." Her lips trembled. "You must stop. If she finds out how you feel," but he interrupted, his voice steady and unyielding. "I will not pretend. I care for you, Elena. I will not let her cruelty decide who deserves kindness and who does not." Her heart pounded wildly at his confession. She wanted to protest, to run, to shield him from the storm that was sure to follow. Yet in that moment, she could not move, caught between fear and the overwhelming pull of his sincerity. She whispered through tears, "You should not ruin your life for someone like me." He reached for her hand, his touch firm but gentle. "You are not someone like you. You are you, and that is enough." And in that stolen moment of truth, the quiet maid who had once believed she was invisible began to realize that her presence had changed the heart of the most powerful man in the mansion. But shadows loomed on the horizon, for Mrs. Lancaster's determination to tear them apart was only just beginning, and the storm of love and defiance was about to shake the very foundations of the house. The house had barely recovered from the shock of that night when Mrs. Lancaster's fury took on a new, sharper edge. She could not forget the way her son had defied her, nor the way the servants whispered when they thought she wasn't listening. Her pride burned, and with that pride came a cruel plan. She would not allow a lowly maid to stain her family's name. If Adrian refused to distance himself, she would do what she had always done best, destroy quietly, with precision. Elena carried out her duties with even greater care, hoping to draw no further attention, but her silence was misread as guilt. Servants muttered under their breath, some out of pity, some out of fear. Then came the day when Mrs. Lancaster summoned the entire household into the drawing room. On a velvet cushion lay one of her most prized diamond bracelets. She announced that it had been stolen, her voice carrying a performance of sorrow and rage. Her eyes, sharp as daggers, found Elena at the back of the room. Without hesitation, she accused her. Gasps filled the air. Elena stood speechless, her face drained of color. She insisted she had never touched it, but Mrs. Lancaster's voice drowned hers. "Search her quarters," she demanded. The servants, trembling, obeyed. Minutes later they returned with the bracelet in hand, claiming it had been found hidden beneath Elena's blanket. Shock rippled through the room. Elena's knees buckled. She swore through tears that she had never seen it before, but Mrs. Lancaster's triumphant smirk revealed the truth to anyone who dared to look closely. This was no discovery, but a trap. Before anyone else could speak, Adrian stepped forward. His eyes, blazing with fury, locked onto his mother. "Enough," he thundered. He took the bracelet, examined it, then pulled another velvet box from a locked cabinet that only his mother and father knew of. Inside was the same piece of jewelry, untouched and secure. He held it up for all to see. "This is the real one. The one you planted is a fake, a copy. Did you think I would not notice? His voice carried such strength that even the walls seemed to tremble. The room erupted into whispers, servants exchanging stunned glances, relatives shrinking under the weight of scandal. Mrs. Lancaster's face drained of color, then flushed red. You dare accuse me, your own mother, she spat. Adrian's answer came sharp and steady. I do not accuse, I reveal. You have humiliated an innocent woman, disgraced your own house, and for what? To protect your vanity. To guard a name that is already rotting with arrogance. The words cut deeper than the torn uniform ever had. Elena stood in shock, tears flowing silently down her cheeks. She had never imagined anyone would fight for her like this, much less risk everything in front of family and servants alike. The room fell silent until Adrian turned and faced everyone. His voice softened, but its power remained. If there is anyone unworthy in this house, it is not her. It is the cruelty that has been allowed to fester here. I will not stand by and let it continue. His declaration left the gathering stunned. For the first time, servants felt a surge of hope, relatives sat speechless, and Mrs. Lancaster herself trembled with fury she could no longer conceal. That evening, Elena sat alone in her small room, clutching the letter she had written. Each word was stained with tears. She thanked Adrian for his kindness, begged him not to destroy his life for her sake, and explained that she would leave before dawn. Her hands shook as she folded the letter and placed it on the table, her heart breaking with every movement. She told herself it was better this way, that she could not bear to be the reason a son turned against his mother. She gathered her few belongings and prepared to disappear into the night, but as she stepped toward the door, it opened. Adrian stood there, his eyes dark with both exhaustion and determination. He had found the letter. He held it in his hand, crushed from his grip. Were you really going to run? His voice was low, pained. Elena could not look at him. I have to. Your family, your future, it will all be ruined because of me. He stepped closer, his voice steady but full of emotion. Ruined? Do you not understand? You are the only thing in this house that has given me hope. Without you, all this wealth, all these walls, they mean nothing. You are not my ruin, you are my salvation. She broke then, sobbing as his words wrapped around her like a promise. But your mother, she whispered. He silenced her fears with a single sentence, if she cannot respect the woman I love, then she will lose me instead. The word love echoed in her chest like a bell. She had feared it, denied it, but could no longer run from it. And yet, the storm was not over. The following day, Mrs. Lancaster's fury reached its peak. She confronted Adrian in front of the household, her voice shrill, her pride in tatters. You would throw away everything for a servant? For someone who scrubs our floors? Adrian stood tall, his hand holding Elena's tightly. Yes, he said calmly, because she has shown more nobility in her silence than all your riches combined. She has more grace in her humility than this entire mansion does in its wealth. The words silenced the room. But then, from the corner, a voice that had been quiet for years spoke. It was Mr. Lancaster, the patriarch, who had long remained in the background while his wife commanded. His deep voice broke the tension. Enough, Margaret. Do you forget who I was before you married me? I was nothing but a factory worker's son. I had nothing but my hands and my honesty. If your family had seen me as you see her, we would never have been together. Have you grown so blind with pride that you cannot remember your own beginnings? His revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Servants gasped, relatives whispered, and Mrs. Lancaster's face paled. She had built her entire identity on wealth and superiority, yet her own husband revealed a truth that undercut her cruelty. Adrian looked at his father with gratitude, while Elena stood stunned, her heart overwhelmed by the sudden tide of support. Mrs. Lancaster tried to speak, but no words came. Her power, once absolute, now faltered under the weight of truth. Adrian turned to the gathering, his hand never leaving Elena's. His voice rang clear, unwavering. This woman, whom you call a servant, has shown a strength that shames us all. She has endured humiliation, false accusations, and cruelty without complaint. And still, she remains gentle, kind, and true. That is the kind of heart I choose to stand beside. I do not care for gossip, for wealth, or for the chains of arrogance. I choose her. The silence that followed was deafening. No one dared move, no one dared speak. The mother who had always commanded the final word stood trembling, defeated not by force but by the truth she had long denied. The servants exchanged glances, tears in their eyes, as though years of quiet suffering had suddenly been lifted. The relatives, hungry for wealth and status, sat speechless, realizing the tide had turned beyond their control. Adrian led Elena forward, out of the room, out of the shadow of cruelty, leaving the stunned household in their wake. Every step they took together felt like a declaration, every glance between them a promise. Elena, once invisible, now walked in the open, her hand clasped tightly in his, no longer hidden, no longer silenced. And though the whispers followed them, though the future remained uncertain, one truth had become undeniable, that dignity and love could never be torn apart by wealth or pride. Sometimes, the loudest power does not come from riches or commands, but from the quiet strength of a humble heart that refuses to break. And in the Lancaster mansion, where silence once hid cruelty, that strength had finally spoken, leaving the entire house speechless.